The sun was soft and golden over the white towers of the royal city. Banners of blue and silver moved gently in the air. Bells rang across the sky, and the people of the Terran Dominion came out to watch the wedding of Princess Lila and Captain Aaron Drake. For many, it was more than a royal event. It was the hope of peace between the nobles and the soldiers, between old power and new ambition. Princess Lila stood by the wide windows of her chamber, looking down at the long path that led to the grand hall. She could see the crowds waiting and cheering. Her gown was fine and light, but her thoughts were heavy. She had grown up surrounded by rules and duties. She had studied politics and history since she was a child, yet no lesson had prepared her for the feelings in her heart. Aaron Drake was not born noble. He was a soldier, a man who came from the far colonies near Mars. He had earned his place in the royal fleet through courage, talent, and honesty. When he first met Lila, it was during the rescue of a colony city caught in a storm. He had risked his life to save others. Lila had been there as a royal observer, and she saw in him something she had never found at Court Truth and Fire. Now, months later, he was to become her husband. In another tower, Queen Eleanor sat before the mirror, while her attendants pinned the crown of light upon her hair. She was fair and calm, her eyes filled with both love and worry. She wanted her daughter to be happy, but she also feared what such a marriage might mean. A union between a princess and a common captain would change the old balance of power. Yet Eleanor had always believed that strength lay not in separation but unity. The ceremony began as the music rose. Lila walked down the shining steps, the crowd falling silent as she passed. At the end of the long hall stood Aaron. He wore the dark uniform of the royal fleet, the Medal of Honor at his chest, and a look that was both humble and proud. When their eyes met, time seemed to pause. Aaron bowed deeply, not just to a princess, but to the woman he loved. Lila reached for his hand, and together they stepped before the queen. The queen looked at Aaron carefully. Around her, the nobles whispered, uncertain of what to think. Some said a soldier should not marry into the crown. Others murmured that perhaps this was the dawn of a new age. As the vows were spoken, the hall filled with light. Outside, the bells grew louder. The queen's counselors exchanged worried glances, but the people cheered. For them, the sight of a brave captain and a kind princess joining their lives was not a scandal. It was hope. When the ceremony ended, Queen Eleanor rose from her throne. Court bowed. She stepped forward slowly, her fine gown sweeping across the silver floor. She looked at the man standing beside her daughter. Her voice was gentle, yet the hall became silent. "Who's that?" she asked quietly, though everyone could hear her. Her daughter turned toward her, her eyes bright and steady. There was no fear, no hesitation. "The man I married," said Princess Lila. The words hung in the air. One long moment, nothing moved. Then, as if a spell had broken, the hall erupted in sound. Some clapped, some wept, others muttered in shock. But Lila and Aaron stood unchanged, hand in hand. The queen gazed at Aaron once more and saw something that many had missed. She saw not just a soldier, not just a man from the colonies, but a spirit that could change the future. Later that evening, during the great feast, music filled the halls. Guests danced beneath the golden lights. Lila and Aaron sat side by side, speaking softly to each other. The queen watched them from her throne. Her heart felt heavy yet proud. She remembered her own youth, when she too had dreamed of courage and freedom. Like in her daughter's choice, she saw the same fire, perhaps even brighter. The stars beyond the palace windows shone like silver lanterns. The queen whispered to herself, "Maybe this is the beginning of something larger than any throne." And as the night went on, the people kept celebrating. They spoke of the wedding that stopped the stars, the day a princess and a captain showed that love could be stronger than rank or distance. The queen smiled quietly. She could no longer deny what she had seen. The man her daughter married was more than a husband. He was a symbol of everything humanity could become: brave, loyal, and full of light. That night, history quietly turned a new page, and neither the queen nor her daughter knew how far their choice would lead. But both could feel that the future had begun to stir. The months after the royal wedding passed like a dream. The world seemed calm and bright, yet deep in that peace, something new was growing. Strange reports came from the frontier near Mercury's orbit. Pilots spoke of lights that bent the sky and voices that echoed through their radios long after silence. Scientists said it was only a magnetic storm, but others whispered about a tear in the heart of space. Captain Aaron Drake was called to the royal station above Earth. He walked through the grand halls where officers and royal guards stood in salute. Though he now wore the title of Prince Consort, he still kept the same calm stride of the soldier he once was. The Queen's Council had gathered in the upper chamber. Queen Eleanor sat at the head of the long silver table, her crown lighter that day, her eyes thoughtful.
Aaron,
She said, "Our explorers have sent fearful messages. Something vast has opened near Mercury. The ships that go near it lose their direction, and sometimes their minds. They say it twists light and thought alike. You have seen storms before? What do you think of this?" Aaron stood tall and answered in his quiet, steady voice. "Majesty, whatever this is, we must learn the truth. If we turn back every time the darkness moves, we will forget what light means." The Queen studied him for a long moment. "You still speak like a captain," she said with a small smile. "Very well. I'll give you command of the fleet *, Silver Rampart *, but you will not go alone. The council wants a royal witness. Again, my daughter has insisted she will go." Aaron looked startled. "Lila, yes," said the Queen. "She says the people must know that the crown does not fear the unknown. She has your courage, or perhaps you have hers." A day later, the great ship lifted from the palace bay, engines glowing blue against the white clouds. Lila stood at the observation window, watching Earth fall away. The planet looked peaceful and small, a jewel surrounded by endless dark. Aaron joined her, his hand resting gently on the glass beside hers. "Are you afraid?" he asked. Lila shook her head. "No, I only hope we'd go to learn, not to fight." "Then we already have victory," he said, smiling. "The heart that seeks to learn is stronger than the one that fears." The fleet moved through the solar winds for several days. The nearer they came to Mercury, the stranger the readings became. Compasses lost north, engines trembled without heat, and the stars outside seemed to fold and twist. Yet through all of it, Aaron remained calm. He spoke to his crew with simple words that gave them courage. He reminded them that they were human, and that no mystery in the universe could make them forget who they were. One night, Lila walked onto the bridge and found him alone. The ship hummed quietly around them. "You are still awake," she said. He looked up from the console. "So are you." "I could not sleep," she admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I hear something, not voices. More like memories that do not belong to me." Aaron nodded slowly. "Many feel it. Storm plays with thought. It can make you hear the echoes of things that never were." "And yet we still move closer," Lila said softly. "Yes," he replied. "Because if we turn away, we let fear write our story. And I would rather face the dark than let it tell me who I am." The next day they reached the edge of the rift. It was not fire or smoke. It was a great curtain of light, swirling and bending in slow motion. The colors shifted like water, silver and blue, then red and gold. Even the hardest soldier on the ship stopped to stare. Aaron gave the order to hold position. Sensors crackled with static, and the lights of the control room flickered. The Queen's message came through the main screen. Her image shimmered with interference. "Aaron," said the Queen, "the Council advises delay. You think it is too dangerous?" "Majesty," Aaron answered, "danger is often where discovery hides. We will not act in haste, but neither will we retreat." The Queen's image faded. Lila looked at him, her heart beating fast. "My mother trusts you," she said. "She trusts you too," he replied. "Otherwise, she would not have sent her most precious treasure into this storm." For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the living light move beyond the windows. The hum of the engines mingled with the soft pulse of the unknown. The crew waited for their next command. Aaron finally spoke. "Tomorrow we begin our study. Tell everyone to rest. Whatever waits in there, we face it together." As Lila left the bridge, she turned once more to look back. Aaron was still there, standing before the window, his reflection mixed with the glow outside. He looked like a man speaking to the stars themselves. She thought then of the day her mother had asked that question in the hall. She remembered her answer and smiled faintly. The man she had married was more than a husband. He was the kind of man who would walk straight into the heart of the unknown and bring light back out again. That night, as the ship drifted quietly near the strange lights, the crew slept uneasily, dreaming of voices in the dark. Only Aaron stayed awake, planning and hoping, as the first edge of the rift began to shimmer brighter, waiting for dawn. The ship's silver rampart floated near the strange curtain of light that turned slowly beyond the windows. Every person on board felt the quiet pressure around them. It was the kind of silence that made hearts beat faster. No one dared speak too loud, as if their own voices might disturb the thin line between them and the unknown. Captain Aaron Drake stood at the center of the command deck. He looked calm, but inside his thoughts were deep and sharp. He watched the glowing field ahead, knowing that soon he must lead his crew through it. His decision was not only for himself. It was for everyone watching from Earth, and for the queen who had trusted him with her daughter. Princess Lila came forward and stood beside him. Her hair fell loosely over her shoulders, and her eyes reflected the changing colors outside. "Is this wise?" she asked quietly. "We do not know what is inside." Aaron turned to her. "Lila, the truth always waits behind fear. We have studied every possible path. If we are careful and stay united, we will be safe. We must trust what makes us human." She smiled softly. "That is what you always say, and I still believe it," he answered, his voice steady. They went over the plans again with the crew. The goal was simple, but dangerous. They would move the ship through the field slowly, record data, and find out where the lights came from. Some of the crew looked uneasy, but Aaron's calm strength made them brave. The next morning, everything was prepared. The engines glowed faintly, and the control panels buzzed. Aaron gave the command. The ship began to move forward, inch by inch, until the curtain of light touched its bow. The colors spread around the windows like liquid fire. No one spoke. The moment was too large. Then the light grew brighter. The air inside the ship trembled. The instruments flashed red, and the walls seemed to hum. A voice broke through the static, a soft echo not from the radio. It sounded like a whisper from every direction, saying words no one could understand. Several officers panicked, but Aaron raised his voice. "Hold your positions," he said. "Focus on your tasks. The storm cannot harm us if we do not fear it." The noise grew louder, then weaker again, as the ship finally passed through. On the other side there was calm. The stars looked different, and space stretched wider than before. Nothing was where it should be, yet it was peaceful. Lila looked out in wonder. "We are still alive," she said. "Yes," Aaron said, smiling slightly. "And now we see what no one else has seen." They spent hours studying the new region. There were lights that moved like threads, running between faraway stars. Its energy lines curved where no gravity should exist. The air around the ship felt warmer, though they were deep in space. It was beautiful and strange, and for a while everyone forgot their fear. But soon, odd things began to happen. The clocks on board no longer matched each other. People began to remember events that had not yet happened. A mechanic said he saw his own reflection blink a second later than his movement. Lila walked through the halls, listening to whispers from the crew. She found Aaron in the study room, writing notes by hand. "You already knew this might happen," she said softly. He looked up. "Ash! I read about time storms long ago. I hoped this would not be one. Now but the rift changes how time moves, not only space. Can we return?" "We will, but not until we learn why this exists. Every risk we take teaches those who come after us." She nodded, understanding that nothing could stop him from seeking the answer. Hours passed, maybe days, it was hard to tell. Aaron stayed on the bridge, guiding the ship through waves of invisible pressure. When the engines grew weak, he helped the engineers repair them with his own hands. When fear spread, he reminded everyone of the reason they were there. "Courage," he said during one quiet moment, "is not about feeling safe. It's about walking forward when you are not." They moved deeper until the light began to fade. At the far end of the dark stretch, they saw what looked like a mirror made of silver glass floating in space. It showed not their reflection, but images of earth-green fields, blue oceans, sunlight breaking through clouds. Lila gasped. "It is showing home." Aaron stared. "Then this is why no one returned." They looked into it and saw what they missed most. The image changed again, showing the queen standing by her palace window, watching the sky. Aaron stepped closer to the glass and spoke in a low voice, almost to himself. "We are coming home, Your Majesty, but we bring more than what we found. We bring proof that even space learns from mankind." Then he turned to his crew, set a course back through the field. "We have enough data. Now we go home." As they began to turn, the mirror shattered into silver dust that scattered among the stars. The dust flowed around the ship like a wave, lighting their path back. Through the thick curtain of light, they slowly moved again, hearts full of relief and wonder. On the other side of the rift, normal stars waited for them like old friends. Lila smiled as Earth appeared again far in the distance. "You did it," she whispered. Aaron shook his head softly. "We did it. Humanity did it." He looked back one more time at the now quiet space where the rift had been. The darkness was still there, but it felt less empty than before, as if it, too, respected the courage of those who had faced it. The ship's silver rampart glided back through open space toward Earth. The journey home felt slower, yet lighter, as if the stars themselves were welcoming them. Everyone on board was quiet at first. They were tired, amazed, and unsure how to speak about what they had seen. The rift had shown them strange things, but it had also reminded them of who they were. Princess Lila stood near the front window, watching the distance shrink between them and the blue planet. She could almost see the white clouds swirling over the oceans. Her heart filled with warmth and relief. She turned slightly to look at Aaron, who was speaking with the engineers. His jacket was marked with dust from the long days, but his eyes were bright. When he noticed her looking, he gave a small smile. "We are almost home," he said. She walked closer. "What will you tell my mother?" "The truth," Aaron said simply. "That we looked into the unknown and found not fear, but understanding. That human spirit does not break even when time itself turns against it." Lila nodded. "She will be proud. She will be proud of you," he said softly. The message to the Queen went ahead of them, carried by light waves. On the palace balcony, Queen Eleanor received it late at night. Her servants and counselors stood around her, nervous and hopeful. The moment she heard that her daughter and her son-in-law had survived, a slow smile spread across her face. She closed her eyes for a moment and whispered a small prayer of thanks. The next morning, news spread across the entire Dominion. The people filled the streets, waving banners and singing as the royal fleet entered orbit. The ship's silver rampart broke through the clouds like a second sunrise, shining with silver light. Trumpets and drums greeted them as the great vessel landed in the royal bay. When the ramp opened, Aaron was the first to step down. He stood tall, his uniform torn and his shoulders straight. Behind him came the crew, tired but proud. Then through the bright wind came Princess Lila, her gown simple but glowing in the sunlight. Queen Eleanor stood waiting at the foot of the steps. The court had gathered behind her, quiet and expectant. The Queen felt her heart beat faster as the ship's crew lined up before her. She saw the marks of their long journey, the hard work of survival and courage written on every face. Her eyes searched among them until she saw Aaron and Lila walking side by side. She remembered the day of the wedding, the whispers of doubt that had filled the hall, and the calm answer her daughter had given then. Here they stood again, stronger than ever. The Queen's voice was soft, but everyone could hear it. She asked, her tone almost the same as before, gentle but full of new respect. The crowd waited for Lila's reply. She reached for Aaron's hand, her eyes bright in the sunlight. "The man I married," she said with quiet pride. A cheer rose from the crowd. Soldiers saluted. Musicians began to play. The Queen smiled, and for the first time in years her eyes grew damp with tears. That evening, the palace became alive with celebration. The great halls glowed with light, and food and music flowed like rivers. Aaron moved among the people, speaking humbly with nobles and workers alike. Every person who met him felt something calm, strength, and kindness that made them believe in humanity again. In the council chamber, the Queen called him aside. "Aaron," she said, "when I first saw you, I saw a man who belonged to the stars. Now that you have returned, I see a man who belongs to history. The Dominion owes you its courage." He bowed. "Majesty, courage belongs to all. We only reminded people it was still there." The Queen looked to Lila, who smiled beside him. "Then it will be remembered," the Queen said. "From this day your journey will be told so that children learn that fear cannot defeat faith." Later that night, standing on the balcony, Aaron looked out at the stars. Lila came to join him. "Do you think the rift is truly gone?" she asked. Aaron looked up at the dark space beyond. "Gone, perhaps. But maybe it will return one day. When it does, others will be ready." She leaned against his shoulder. "You are never still, are you?" He smiled faintly. "Stillness is for endings. We have only begun." From below, they could hear the songs of the people rising through the warm air. Words of joy filled the night, echoing up to the high towers of the palace. The queen stood in her chamber watching them, her heart peaceful. She whispered to herself, "The courage of one can light the hearts of many." And far above, the stars seemed to shimmer in agreement, as if the universe itself had paused to listen. The silver rampart rested silently on the royal bay, glowing under the moon like a promise that would never fade. The world slept that night with new dreams, and every dream carried one clear memory: the day courage returned home, carried in the hearts of a princess and the man she married. Years passed after the return of the silver rampart. The story of its journey spread across the world and beyond. Songs were written, books were read aloud in schools, and people spoke of Captain Aaron Drake and Princess Lila with deep pride. No more did they think of them only as heroes. They thought of them as proof that the human heart could walk through any storm and come back brighter. Queen Eleanor grew older and wiser, her hair turned silver, but her eyes never lost their light. Every evening she went to the same balcony where she had once watched her daughter walk down the wedding steps. She often thought of that moment, the question she had asked, and the simple answer that had changed so much. Aaron and Leela lived not far from the royal city, in a quiet house surrounded by gardens. They could hear the bells of the palace on clear days. Though they had fame, they sought peace. Aaron tended the small orchard behind their home, and Lila taught at the Royal Academy, helping young minds learn about science and courage. When children asked her what space was like, she always smiled and said, "Space is not far. It begins the moment you start to wonder." One morning, a royal messenger arrived at their gate. He bowed deeply and handed Aaron a sealed letter from the queen. The paper was soft white, and the words were written in her careful hand. "My dear captain," the letter began, "it is time to share what you learned with all our people. The council wishes to build a new academy for explorers and dreamers. I would have no one else lead it but you." Aaron read it aloud to Lila. She smiled warmly. "You always find another challenge waiting for you," she said. He laughed softly. "Or maybe it finds me." A week later, they returned to the palace. The queen greeted them in the grand hall, surrounded by her closest advisors. Even though her steps were slower, her voice was strong. "Aaron," she said, looking into his eyes, "your journey changed not only our empire but our hearts. It is time now for you to guide others. Every explorer who sets sail should remember that they are human before anything else." Aaron bowed deeply. "Majesty, I will do as you ask. But promise me one thing, that this academy will not only train officers, but teach kindness too. Machines can command ships, but only hearts can lead people." The queen nodded. "That is exactly why I chose you." Months later, the Academy of Light opened its gates. Children from every land came to learn. On its front wall was carved a simple line: "Courage is the light we leave behind." Aaron gave the first lesson, standing in the courtyard, his voice calm and clear. He spoke of the stars, of the rift near Mercury, and of the mirror that had shown them home. But he ended his talk with words about unity. "Remember," he told them, "no journey begins with victory, begins with hope, and hope is born when one person dares to step forward." Princess Leela stood nearby, proud and graceful, her heart full of love. She often joked that he could speak for hours, but she never stopped listening. Years turned into decades. The queen grew old and rested in her chambers more often, but she still asked to hear stories of the academy. One evening, as the sun went down in golden light, she called her grandchildren to her side. They sat at her feet, eager for another tale. She began to tell them about that day long ago in the wedding hall. The memory lived fresh in her voice. "I asked a simple question," she said, "because I thought I had seen all kinds of men, generals and kings. But when I looked at him, I saw something rare, a man who carried not power but purpose." "What did Mother say?" one of the children asked softly. The queen smiled. She said, "The man I married," and in those 4 words, she told me the future. As the stars began to appear, the queen leaned back in her chair. The sound of laughter and soft footsteps filled the room. Her heart was peaceful, She looked out the window and saw, far above, a group of ships rising into the night, the new explorers setting off toward the unknown. Under the same light that had once guided Aaron and Leela, in the quiet that followed, the palace seemed to breathe. The old walls carried memories of love and courage, of a woman who had asked a question, and of a daughter who had answered it from her heart. Leela and Aaron grew older together, but their love never faded. In their garden they planted flowers that opened only at night, so they could watch them glow under the stars. Sometimes Lila would rest her head against his shoulder and whisper, "Do you still dream of the rift?" Aaron would smile. "No," he would answer. "Now I dream of home, because I learned that every journey returns there in the end." And when he looked up, he imagined the queen still watching from her balcony, smiling down upon them and whispering to the stars. "Who's that?" He could almost hear Lila's reply, sweet and steady through the night wind. "The man I married." The world kept moving forward. New heroes were born, but the story of the queen, the princess, and the captain never faded. It became a legend told wherever humanity dared to go, reminder that courage begins with love, and that love can travel through any darkness and return with light.